Come all you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
The largest union talk radio program in the South. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host, Adam Keller, is out today. Can you believe that, folks? What? That's what you get when you work with union people. Just out all the time. No, I'm kidding. He's out working today. He is fascinatingly at a some sort of Alabama history symposium down in South Alabama, talking about, if I'm remembering right, the 1971 sanitation workers strike in the city of Huntsville. Hopefully that panel is going to be recorded and we can play it for you on the program next week. If it's not recorded, he'll be able to give us, a little bit of a recap. I'm really excited to hear about it. Here's a fun fact for you folks. The 1971 sanitation worker strike in the city of Huntsville is what prompted the city to create a SWAT team. So that's pretty funny, I think. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number, 844-899-8857. The phone lines are open now because Adam is out, so going to have a little bit less to talk about than normal. So we went ahead and opened the lines. If you have anything to ask us, 844-899-TVLR. That's 844-899-8857. Also, text messages are up again at that number. So shoot us a text if you would rather not call. You can also text 844-899-8857, and we will respond on the air. You can also hang out with us on the YouTube chat, in the Facebook chat, on Twitch, any places like that. Would love to hear from you. Let's talk first about the Alabama legislative session. That just ended a couple of days ago, and it was, it was so bad. It's just difficult to understand the priorities of so many people in government. I know intellectually, right, that our politicians are kind of bought and paid for by private interest groups, or by special interest groups, corporations, stuff like that. But it's still difficult for me to kind of feel the truth of that statement. It's difficult for me to kind of get in the mindset of somebody who would go down there to Montgomery, and rather than trying to make Alabama a better place for working people, rather than trying to do things that are going to be good for all of Alabama's citizens, you go down there and try to take money from poor people and give it to rich people and corporations. Listen to some of their priorities. The legislature did not make any progress on reining in corporate abuses of working people. We still do not even have a minimum wage in the state of Alabama. The federal minimum wage, which, because of, the federal law superseding state law, is the only minimum wage active in the state of Alabama. It's $7.25 an hour. They did nothing about that. There are still a lot of people who are working 6-7 days a week, who have to work 6 or 7 days a week. There was legislation that was put forward that would have curbed those corporate abuses, that would have raised the minimum wage to $10 an hour. There was legislation that would have said that you cannot mandate your employees work 6 or 7 days a week. I think that's good. I think that we should have, I think that if you're going to make overtime, a condition of your employment, I don't think that overtime should be a condition of your employment, but if it is going to be a condition of employment, it should be even more than time and a half. You should have to pay a huge penalty for requiring workers to sacrifice basically the entirety of their conscious existence to your profits. That should take huge, huge, huge sums of money. Skyrocketing healthcare costs. The federal government, the Trump administration, took away the enhanced premium tax credits. People who are on the marketplace in Alabama, hundreds of thousands of Alabamians saw their health insurance prices increase by 100% or more. People who are on their employer's health insurance still saw their health insurance increase by significant amounts. Nothing was done about that. Nothing was done about the use of child labor by corporations that get taxpayer money. Nothing was done about that. There was a bill that was introduced that would have said, look, if you get taxpayer money and we find out that you have been abusing children for profits, then we're going to take our taxpayers' money back and invest it in corporations that do right by the citizens and the people of Alabama. That was something that was on offer. They didn't get to that. Wasn't a big enough of a priority for them to stop the abuse of children in manufacturing facilities in the state of Alabama. But they did find time during the legislative session to make to do some things. One of the things that they decided to do was take candy away from poor people, making SNAP benefits not able to be used on quote-unquote sugary items, candy, soft drinks, things like that. They also insulated Alabama Power from voter discontent through changes to the Public Service Commission. At first, you'll remember, they tried to change the Public Service Commission completely eliminate voters' ability to influence the Public Service Commission and make it an appointed position rather than elected, as it is now. And there was so much backlash to that they had to kill that bill. But towards the end of the session, they were able to rush through a bill that basically accomplished the same thing. They expanded the number of elected seats on the Public Service Commission, which, by the way, is going to increase the cost of the Public Service Commission. But, maybe it's worth it. They expanded the number of elected seats while at the same time taking away a lot of the functions that the elected Public Service Commission had and giving it to an appointed energy secretary. Now, the Public Service Commission is not going to be able to set their own agenda. They're not going to be able to hire their own staff. All of that is going to be done by the appointed energy secretary rather than the elected public service commissioners. And of course, that is going to insulate Alabama Power from voter discontent. It's going to make it more difficult for people who are upset about high utility bills to do something about it. They also made time to further undermine public education by siphoning still more taxpayer dollars to private schools through the Choose Act. And so it's crazy. It's difficult to understand kind of the mindset of people that go in with those priorities, and especially the SNAP benefits stuff, right? The theory there is that it's bad for government money to go towards unhealthy food items for people. And so if we're going to give people funds, taxpayer money, public dollars for food, then instead of allowing them to use it on quote-unquote unhealthy food items, it should only be able to be used on quote-unquote healthy food items. And so it's, kind of supposed to be a piece of policy that attacks waste, right, or abuse. But if what you're really concerned about is waste and abuse and people getting public dollars that shouldn't get public dollars, then I do not understand how attacking multi-billion-dollar international corporations who are abusing the children of Alabama for profits is not the first thing on your list. We have manufacturers, we have construction contractors in the state of Alabama who have broken child labor law and still get taxpayer dollars. Why is that not the priority over poor people getting a Kit Kat bar? Right? I don't understand. It does not make sense to me. If you could help me out with it, 844-899-TVLR is the phone number. That is 844-899-8857. You can give us a call, or you can send us a text at that same number, and we'll be able to take your call. And we actually do have a caller on the line, so let's go ahead and bring that caller on. This one from a 256 area code. Dwayne, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hey, Jacob, I went and attended the legislature on the last day in the afternoon. So I actually got to hear some of these things. And Senator Larry Stutz fought valiantly for about 40 minutes for things that would stop monopolization of what happened with Huntsville and Crestwood. Mm-hmm. It didn't go over though. Mm-hmm. And but he really put forth, just like he did on your show, things to try to stop that. Then another one that you're going to find really interesting is
really quickly, Dwayne. Before we talk about the next thing, I hadn't heard about did he introduce legislation to combat healthcare monopolization, or was he just talking about the need to draft such legislation?
No, there's another whole bill that was going to allow, like they didn't break it down to let you really realize it. But when Stutz came up, he reiterated, these are the ways that you are going to allow the bigger hospitals to take over the smaller hospitals and actually create monopoly-like situations that all of you are overlooking. And he was very eloquent, and you couldn't have got around it any more so. But the persons wanting to do it, you could tell by even their voice, intonation, and everything that they weren't going to go with what Stutz, being a doctor, actually realized was bad.
Right.
But he really, I mean, they should have listened to him, because I don't think anybody listening in the audience or any of us would have denied what he was saying. Now, the other one is really something that you're going to find amazing. The federal government's giving up, I want to say maybe $210 million per state, and you have to put out paperwork as a legislature to get this money, okay? Right. And guess what this money has you do when you get it, what you do? It allows Alabama and Auburn universities to not be touched by this legislation. Have you got me? The only two colleges that won't be touched by it. But like Jacksonville State, A&M, all of the rest of them, it puts forth that every 6 years, the professors will have to be up to see if they get to keep their tenure or not. And it appears to me that it's based upon, are they following the executive branch's idea of what they want you to be teaching as far as education. Right. And if you're not, you could lose your tenure. Are you following me here? Yeah. And the Democrats really gave a long, hard, I think it passed though, why are you not doing that? If you're going to do this, which we don't think you should, you're going to, and they said it will keep really good professors from coming from Alabama. Why would you want to come here if in 6 years you may no longer have your tenure, which was a really good point. Right. But again, at the last minute, I do believe it passed. I didn't stay to hear. I was really wanting to see what was going to happen with the forcing the Republicans and Democrats to stay within their own party. But they never brought that up.
As my understanding, the United Campus Workers of Alabama were trying to fight back against that. Unfortunately, they were unsuccessful. But, one thing that I will say that it's the thing that one of the difficulties of the decline of unionization and the protection of union contracts across the economy is that it makes keeping tenure in universities, which in other vocations would just be, job security and progressive discipline and just cause and things like that. It makes that more difficult to defend because you have working people in like automotive shops or something who are like, well, I don't have quote unquote tenure. Why should a college professor get quote unquote tenure? And the reality is that everybody should get quote unquote tenure. Everybody should have job protections. Everybody should have protections in their job that say that as long as you do your job and you're not, you're not actually performing poorly, you can't be fired. Your supervisor, management actually has to find problems with your work product for you to be disciplined or terminated. But because
the thing
people
that should really frighten us here is that bill. That bill is going to make it where if you're not teaching what they want you to teach in the way they want you to teach it, and that would sort of be like, oh, they don't want you to teach statistics. I'm not going to be able to say statistical, historical racism. You get me? Any little bit of that, then it's every single college and not just the ones receiving funds from the state of Alabama. You follow what I mean?
Right.
And listen, Jacob, there really would be a need to teach that because the Alabama legislature, in the cases that have to do with the redistricting, they were found guilty of racism. Have you got me? They were absolutely, by the 3-judge panel, found guilty of racism. And that means racism still exists, and that means an Alabama student should be able to study historical racism. Do you get me? Because they may be with the NAACP wanting to fight that in court, because there is a case about it that's going to be before Judge David Proctor. And that person no longer can study historical racism, of which the Alabama legislature was found guilty. You get me? They passed a law that prevents anyone from actually being able to fight their case against them.
Yeah. It's crazy. Dwayne, thanks for calling in. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks a whole lot. Take care.
Yeah. We've got Al Rainey on the line. Al Rainey is the chair of the Alabama NAACP's Labor and Industry Committee. They have an essay writing contest that I am excited about that I wanted to share with y'all. So we wanted to get Al on the program. Brother Rainey, welcome to the Valley Labor Report. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Jacob. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thanks for taking the time.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. So, Al, before we talk about the essay writing contest, could you give us just really briefly a little bit about why the labor movement is important to you as, you're the chair of the Labor and Industry Committee of the Alabama NAACP. You're also a retired UAW member.
Well, my opinion on the labor union being a very important in this country as a whole is to educate and serve as better quality of life, for people to move into the middle class, and where that seems like it's kind of getting harder to do. And, the workforce, really, they might not think of it, but they need representation. And that's what got me where I am now. And the benefits, because everybody in the company, what a lot of people don't understand about companies, everybody that does business with a manufacturer company, they don't have a contract. It's the employees. Everybody else, the vending machine, to everybody, they got a contract with the company or the manufacturer, Jacob.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something, you think about the way our society works, and almost every interaction that you have with any other party involves a binding contract. You would not, buy a car without negotiating a contract that is enforceable by the law on both you and the car dealership. You would not buy a house without a contract. And as you said, the automotive manufacturers are not going to hire subcontractors. They're not even going to allow vending machine vendors to use their space without some sort of contract that is enforceable by the law on both parties. And yet, workers are expected to work in workplaces, not just automotive manufacturing facilities, but everywhere without a contract. And that is, one of the really important things that unions and unionization can bring to working people to provide some level of stability and enforcement of working conditions and policies in the workplace. And so going from that to civil rights and civil rights organizations like the NAACP, what is the connection there between the labor movement and civil rights organizations like the NAACP?
Well, Jacob, they pretty much join at the hip. Mr. Ruther was the father of labor, and along with him with Dr. King. They did the 1963 March on Washington for worker rights, human rights, women rights, social rights. So that's in the modern era. That's where it all begun, and that's why the NAACP and the labor unions are partners, because we work for the same cause, fight for the same causes.
Right. Absolutely. And so that brings us to this essay contest. I saw it on the Alabama NAACP's Facebook page last week. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Okay. Walter Reuther essay and scholarship was, I guess it pretty much started in COVID, like around 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And we formed we had the committee, but we didn't have the scholarships. And the starting of the early, before we had 2020, the UAW used to, at that time, was sponsoring the labor breakfast and the scholarships. So anyway, since we went through COVID, we had to reach out with other unions to get a jump start, such as CWA, AFL, CIO. Even we reached out to the AEA. We got about 5 unions that we reached to, but CWA is one of the ones that's participating here lately, and so. But the scholarship essay is the essays are for 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. They have to do an essay on Walter Reuther, and we got the criteria and all is on the Alabama NAACP website also. So and then we're hoping that this year, and that gives the students an opportunity to learn about Mr. Reuther and labor movement and the civil rights movement, but the Walter Reuther Scholarship is about the labor movement. Mm-hmm. And we judged. We got in a committee really the people that grade the essays, and the students have to tell about their pros and cons, what's good about labor unions, and they always we want them to tell what's negative about it. But we've had several winners over since 2020. And one young lady out of Mobile County won the scholarship in, I think it was 2023. And she wrote on about how important she thought that labor unions, would be going into the age of AI. having representation. So we're trying to just, kind of start in middle school, educating them, and hopefully we'll raise enough funds this year that we're gonna add a college student on. And we just in the past it's just been like I said, 9th through 12th graders, but we're hoping we have the funds to add on because the college, youth and college chapter in the state of Alabama is doing real good. They're doing good work, and they're gonna be the next generation.
All right. Brother Al Rainey is the chair of the Alabama NAACP's Labor and Industry Committee. Brother Rainey, thank you for your time. Is there anything else you want to leave us with before we let you go?
Jacob, I hope you continue to follow us all the way to the convention. This year, the convention will be hosted in Lee County, uh, down in around the Auburn area. That's where we'll be. They'll host it, and that's when we'll give away the scholarship and an essay at that breakfast. We have a breakfast in different parts of the state. So we try to really get people to participate all across the state, get more possessions. But I really, the Labor and Industry Committee works hard, year around trying to raise funds and make people aware, the younger generation aware of labor unions, along with civil rights. But I hope you'll continue to follow the rest of the year.
All right, will do. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on, man.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So like I said, the Alabama NAACP's Labor and Industry Committee has a 2026 essay writing contest about Walter Reuther's legacy. The essay topic is Walter Reuther's legacy of social responsibility. Examine how his activism extended beyond labor rights to include education and civil rights, and how those principles apply to today's standards. The deadline is June 30th, 2026. Winners will be announced at a later date and presented at the 2026 Alabama NAACP's State Conference. You can find out more on their website, alnaacp.org. That is alnaacp.org. So definitely check that out. And if any listeners of the Valley Labor Report decide to have to themselves write an essay and apply, or to have their children write an essay and apply for this award, then you should let us know that you did that at 844-899-TVLR. You can leave us a voicemail or send us a text message, and we will get it all at the same number. That's 844-899-8857. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. Union Gus in the chat said that is really selling A. Philip Randolph short. No, I don't think so. I mean, definitely A. Philip Randolph is a really important, I don't think it's a terrible thing to have a Walter Reuther essay contest. But A. Philip Randolph, an incredibly important figure in the labor movement, and particularly important for connecting the labor movement to the civil rights movement. Al mentioned MLK's March on Washington and how the UAW was so important to that. The UAW basically funded that. Well, A. Philip Randolph's union, the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, provided the transportation for the March on Washington. The Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters was the union that represented porters, like waiters, servers, assistants, in the sleeping cars on passenger trains. So a much more important industry back then than it is today. 844-899-TVLR again is the phone number, 844-899-8857. We're going to be taking a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to an auto worker that is organizing in Michigan about how union busters are trying to beat their campaign and how they're fighting back. Really excited for that conversation. And we'll also take your calls. Again, 844-899-TVLR. We will be right back.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
Since 1889, the National Association of Letter Carriers has protected the rights of city carriers as they deliver the mail and offer support for their community. The Alabama State Association of Letter Carriers makes their legislative voices heard when it comes to issues involving the U.S. Postal Service and the working members of the union. The National Association of Letter Carriers has been longtime supporters of the Muscular Dystrophy Association and the Stamp Out Hunger food drive. This message is sponsored by the Alabama Association of Letter Carriers. To learn more, visit NALC.org. Unite Here is also a supporter of the Valley Labor Report. They are a labor union that represents 300,000 working people across Canada and the United States. Their members work in the hotel, gaming, food service, manufacturing, textile, distribution, laundry, transportation, and airport industries. You can learn more about Unite Here at unitehere.org.
Come all you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report. with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
That's right, folks. From the mountains of Tennessee to the bayous of Louisiana, broadcasting online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller, but he is out today. Today on the program, we just finished talking to the chair of the Alabama NAACP's Labor and Industry Committee about their Walter Reuther essay writing contest. We will soon be talking to an organizing auto worker in Michigan about how they are fighting back against union busters. We'll also take your calls at 844-899-TVLR. All that and more on today's program. Again, if you'd like to call in, you can do that at 844-899-8857. You can also send us a text message at the same number. We'll respond to it on the program. You can leave us a voicemail at that number when we are not live, and you can send us another written note at tvlr.fm/contact. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, you can find us anywhere you find anything online, in particular at our website, tvlr.fm, but we are also on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts, all at the Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, your support helps us stay on the air. Our largest single source of funding comes directly from our listeners. So if you want to become a sustaining donor to the program or make a one-time donation, you can go to tvlr.fm/donate or patreon.com/the Valley Labor Report. We got a bunch of cool merch for sale at tvlr.fm/store, and I need to go out and make some shipments. We've got some orders in over the last couple of weeks, and I need to go ship those, so I'm going to do that this week. And finally, if you're a member of a union, then you should think about getting your local, your district or regional council or international to sponsor the show. You can reach out to us for more details on that. And since Adam is not in, I will add a disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in this program belong solely to their author and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. We welcome all of our listeners, whether you are on YouTube, Facebook, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, WGOW, WMSP, Means TV, or through your favorite podcast app. We are proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network and encourage our listeners to check that out at laborradionetwork.org. As most of you know, we're not media professionals, just diehard unionists who want to amplify the voices of the working class in the American South, hoping that this project can make a difference on that front, and we can't do it without you. So whether you're a long-time listener, a loyal fan, or tuning in for the first time, we appreciate you spending some time with us. Every week in the South, workers organize new unions, they bargain new contracts, they fight for good legislation and against bad legislation, and they put their boss in their place. These are some of the stories that we could find from April 3rd to April 10th. This is Last Week in Southern Labor. Over the last 2 weeks, 22 workers in 2 bargaining units unionized. 60 workers in 1 bargaining unit withdrew their petition for a union election. 48 workers across 2 bargaining units voted against unionization, and 436 workers in 14 bargaining units have gone public with their union campaigns. Here are those details. In new campaigns, 700 workers at the Mid-Continent Library System in Missouri announced their intention to unionize with the Communication Workers of America, CWA, Local 6360. 200 workers at Hard Rock Casino in Bristol, Virginia, filed a petition to hold a union election with the Teamsters, Local 519. 6 different units of Starbucks workers filed a petition to hold a union election with Starbucks Workers United. 16 in Houston, Texas, 21 in Goodlettsville, Tennessee, 24 in Norman, Oklahoma, 25 in Austin, Texas, 16 in Greer, South Carolina, and 24 in Sewanee, Georgia. 12 workers at the Kentucky Power Company in Ashland, Kentucky, filed a petition to hold a union election with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW, Local 978. 40 workers at Did Lake Inc. in Portsmouth, Virginia, filed a petition to hold a union election with the Public Service Employees Union, Local 572. 17 workers at Lee County Electric Cooperative in North Fort Myers, Florida, filed a petition to hold a union election with Local 1933 of the IBEW, and 26 workers at Huntsman Corporation in Freeport, Texas, filed a petition to hold a union election with the International Union of Operating Engineers, IUOE, Local 564. In election results, 120 workers at Dairy Farmers of America in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, voted in a card check election to unionize with the Teamsters Local 391. 60 workers at U.S. Foods, Inc. in Salem, Virginia, withdrew their petition for a union election with the Brotherhood of Teamsters Local 171. 8 workers at U.S. Foods in Salem, Virginia, voted 4-4 against unionization with the Teamsters Local 171. 13 workers at Cardinal Health 414 in Springfield, Missouri, voted 7-6 in favor of unionization with the Teamsters Local 245. 40 workers at Grayson Collin Electric Cooperative in Van Alstyne, Texas, voted 11-27 against unionization with the IBEW Local 220. 9 workers at Carrere America in LaPorte, Texas, voted 5-2 in favor of unionization with the International Chemical Workers Union Council of the UFCW. In grievances, unfair labor practices, and court cases, after initially defying a court order to reinstate the contracts it has with its unions, the VA has now acquiesced, ordering management to abide by the contracts it previously said to ignore. This will reinstate employee benefits like extended parental leave and grievance procedures for more than 300,000 union-represented VA employees. The order is a preliminary injunction that, while not deciding the case on its merits, does mean that this judge thinks the union is likely to ultimately prevail. The judge says that the nature of the contract terminations are retaliations for constitutionally protected speech and actions by unions that the Trump administration disfavors, as evidenced by the fact that unions who did not sue the administration saw their contracts kept intact. In strikes and bargaining updates, 300 call center workers for DirecTV in West Virginia, Kentucky, and other states voted to authorize a strike if the company doesn't offer them a fair contract. Their union, the Communication Workers of America, said in a statement that top priorities for workers at the bargaining table include higher wages, lower healthcare costs, and fair working conditions, including the ability to take their hard-earned days off and take reasonable breaks between calls. After UPS admitted that its buyout program was a violation of their contract with the Teamsters, the union secured what they called a stronger settlement that limits the number of people the company can offer it to 7,500 and prioritizes applicants by seniority. In the agreement, they also got the company to agree not to pursue any further buyout or severance programs throughout the life of the contract, which expires in July of 2028. 200 Florida warehouse workers for United Natural Foods, Inc., UNFI, organized with the Teamsters Local 769, voted by 100% to authorize a strike if the company doesn't offer a fair contract. They first unionized last year and still don't have a contract yet. UFCW Local 400 members at Boar's Head in Jarrett and Petersburg, Virginia, voted unanimously to ratify a new union contract. The union says that the 4-year agreement adds the day after Thanksgiving as an additional holiday, maintains affordable health care, and provides generous across-the-board raises retroactively to November 2025. In political and legislative updates, Alabama's legislative session ended last week while the legislature decided not to make any progress on reining in corporate abuses or the use of child labor by corporations that get taxpayer money, nor on low wages and long hours, nor on skyrocketing healthcare costs. They did decide to prioritize taking candy away from poor folks and insulating Alabama Power from voter discontent through changes to the Public Service Commission. They also decided to further undermine public education by siphoning still more taxpayer dollars to private schools. Melania Trump made a strange speech last week about Epstein, but that's not all she's done. She also recently announced an initiative that she supports to replace human teachers with AI robots. The American Federation of Teachers condemned the initiative in a statement saying that, quote, anyone who cares about teaching and learning knows there is no substitute for the daily magic that happens between educators and students in the classroom. It can never replace the human skills and knowledge needed to solve very human problems. It can never replace the relationship building and critical thinking that kids need to survive. They also pointed out that rather than curbing the issues of screen time with young people and students, this would only exacerbate it. And finally, in internal union affairs, the United Auto Workers released its annual Union Vehicle Guide. You can find it online on the union's website. If we missed anything, let us know at tvlr.fm/contact and subscribe to the newsletter to get the exhaustive version of Last Week in Southern Labor in your inbox every single week at tvlr.fm. I believe we've got our guest in the Zoom. Jared Grania is a worker at Axalta Coating Systems in Michigan and a member of the UAW's Volunteer Organizing Committee in the plant. They have a union election next week on April 14th, coming up very soon. Jared, thank you for taking the time in what I know is a very, very busy last few days before the election to talk to us.
Thank you for having me.
So before we talk, we wanted to talk to you primarily about the union busters that are crawling all throughout your plant. But before we do that, I figure it makes sense to talk a little bit first about why you and your coworkers decided you wanted to form a union.
Well, I've been at the company for 15 years, and prior to them being Axalta, they were DuPont, and then Axalta bought them. And ever since they've taken over, it has slowly been decreasing. They've been taking away little things every year, whether it be raises actually on your check or minor things as of uniforms, safety glasses, as in if you have prescription safety glasses, you have to pay out of your pocket, just little things. And it keeps getting worse and worse, and we've had enough. And now with this merger coming down the line, and kind of reading what Axo Noble's about, if we're not united going into this, it could spell trouble for all the workers in the future.
And so just for people who might not be familiar with the merger, the company that you work for now is either being acquired or is merging with another company that has sort of a history of doing probably to an even greater extent what you've experienced under Axalta. You talked about how since they took over from DuPont, working conditions and kind of some of the perks that you used to have just been chipped away at, and you're anticipating that to an even greater degree after this merger goes through. Is that right?
Yeah, if you kind of read Axo Noble's plan, they call it their industrial excellence plan, and it's basically just thinning things out for management right on down to the hourly workers. And the only way to protect ourselves going into this, at least to guarantee to go into this with what we have now and to keep that and build upon that, is to unionize. And without it, it could be devastating across the board, not only for the hourly, but even for the management that's not even part of this union. The way they explain their plan, it's to make up a significant amount of money in a short amount of time. And in their plan, it doesn't talk about new customers. So if you're not getting new customers, there's only really one way to get that money back. And the first way is getting in the pockets of your employees.
Absolutely. And so after the campaign went public, your employer hired an anti-union consulting group for at least $3,700 a day. I say at least because in the contract that they have with the with your employer that they have to report to the federal government, they said that it's $3,700 a day plus expenses. And so, we're not going to know for a little bit exactly how much those expenses are going to be. But, what were some of the first signs that you noticed that they had hired these guys?
A few unfamiliar faces on the floor, walking through the plant, seeing supervisors escorting people that you really haven't seen before throughout the plant, interacting with the workers. And then they started setting up meetings to have people come, not mandatory, but stress that they would like to see you at these meetings to express their feelings about, the cons of having a union in the shop. And I don't know how it went. I know there was a significant amount of people that didn't want to hear it because we've we've heard a lot, and it seems like once this campaign started, the company all of a sudden started caring, I guess you could say. Now they want to listen. Now they want to be right by us. But people have seen it and have had enough. And we're just ready to go forward with this, with a safety, I guess you would say, a safety net to help us in the future going into this merger.
Right. Had you heard about union busters and these anti-union consultants before this campaign started?
Yeah, I have. I'm actually a proud member of the IABW Local 58 out of here in Detroit. So I'm very familiar with the union and union busters and how they organize and what they do. And, if you paid them 20% more than what they're making, they would go around and campaign for you. They're not,
right.
For the union. They're not there for they don't care. They're just there to make money. So whoever pays the most, they'll spit that game. And then Exalta's paying a good penny for them to push a message that it's not true. The facts are very simple with the union. The members make the union. The people inside the plant make the union. The dues are minimal compared to possibly losing a chunk of your salary or even your income or even your job.
Right.
So people, you get insurance on your car, you get insurance on your house. You don't plan on your house burning. You don't plan on getting a car accident, but you do it because it's a peace of mind that you're safe. And if something does happen, you get someone to back you up. And that's what a good union will do.
Right. Right. What? You mentioned that they had been doing some meetings. You did say that they weren't mandatory meetings. So, I suppose that's good. We do talk to a lot of people who these union busters and their employer will subject them to mandatory captive audience meetings that you have to attend. But have they been doing anything else that, that has kind of raised your eyebrow or just what kind of tactics have they been employing as they try to fight the union here?
Well, there's been an influx of TV screens mounted throughout the plant just to push their agenda. Constantly flipping through the cons of a union and the positive of a non-union, and you don't want them to come in because then we won't have this great what am I looking for? The great interaction between management and employee, worker, which we don't have now, but they assume that if someone comes in, we're not going to have that. And then I've seen them on the floors more. So I don't know if that's a sign that a lot of people maybe haven't been going to the meetings they had planned. So they've kind of come out of their scheduled meeting areas and they're still, cornering workers on the floor and trying to tell them and get their message across that way. But I do believe that the people are seeing what they're trying to put out and knowing that it's not all true. And they're speaking about Exalta, right? And Exalta's gone at the end of the year, and we're beginning the next. The controlling shares will be AkzoNobel, and they don't speak anything about AkzoNobel. They speak about Exalta's great and Exalta, but Exalta's not going to be there, and neither are their promises. So the people have to get together and be united for what's coming down the tracks.
I was talking to Antonia. She's one of the UAW organizers on this campaign, and she said that some of the union busters have not appreciated when they've got pushback during some of these meetings from some of the more pro-union workers. How have they reacted when they have been asked questions from a more pro-union perspective? Or I don't know if you've been in the meeting. Maybe you haven't been in the meetings.
I have one because I did want to hear what they had to say and how they've, the company, Exalta, made these meetings is they put people like myself who's pro-union. They put all the pro-union people together so we would get a different spin. So they'd be very, just get your information and make your best decision and do what's best. But then the people that they think were on the fence, they would go at them pretty hard. Or the people who didn't want to do it, I've heard that they would take some employees and the supervisor would say, or the floor shift supervisor would say, hey, I want to speak to you. They would follow their supervisor thinking they had to do something with the job. And the next, they're in a room with the supervisor, a buster and themselves and they're kind of, cornering them, giving them a bunch of business. So their tactics, if it's what they told me in my meeting, let them give the information, what you have to say. Let us get our information out and let the people make an educated decision. But they're not doing that. They're spinning it. They're putting lies out there, and it's not right. And all we're looking for is if they just followed our policy that we have established way back when it was DuPont, the policy, we probably wouldn't even be in this position. But they don't follow the policy. They have what they call management select. You can walk 100 feet in any direction in our plant if you got in the center, and you're going to find a different set of rules, a different set of standards in every direction, and that shouldn't be. If you follow the policy, if you want to advance in the plant, if you want to, hire, fire, discipline, it was all there in the policy, but they don't follow it. And the people have had enough. One person can do something and they could be walked out, and the next person can do it, and who knows, they might be promoted if they're friends with the right people, and everyone is tired of that.
Yeah, you're speaking to two issues that I really do feel are not appreciated enough by so many people who are not in a union. You're speaking to the enforceability of a policy and having a real, but because the policy, quote unquote, an employee handbook that's not a contract, right? I mean, the employee handbook, if you actually go and you try to read everything in your employee handbook, almost always there will be some fine print in there that says that the employer, this is not a contract. The employer is not bound by the terms within the employee handbook. Exactly. We can actually do kind of whatever we want. And, that's super lame. We shouldn't, workers should be able to see in black and white their expectations, and they should be able to enforce those expectations not only on the worker, but also on the boss, right?
Exactly. Then that's the issue. They in the beginning, they tell you, hey, we have this policy we file and it's going to be fair. And then just like you stated, when it comes right down to it, they can do what they want. And they say that. We have management that says that. I'm a manager and I will do what I want. I've heard in my area, hey, you've got options, which basically tells me you don't like it here, you don't like what I'm doing, you don't like the way I'm going to do things, tough luck. And that's not how you should be going to work and having to feel. When you go to work, you put your time in, you do your time, but you shouldn't have to look over your shoulder and worry about, how is the manager feeling today? Is today a bad day for him, therefore it's going to be a bad day for us? It shouldn't be that way. And that's how it's going.
No, that's exactly right. And so these consultants, these union busters who have come in, what sort of effect do you feel like this has had on your coworkers?
There's a few. I would say there's more on the non-union, some hardcore people who really oppose it. I haven't seen it on the pro. No, I haven't seen, but I've seen it on the against it, whether you're putting on information and they're throwing it. Like, I'm the tip of the spear. I brought this upon our plant so people know that. So I'll find, if there's flyers out, I'll find a whole bunch of them crumpled up in front of my locker, or vote no or something. And of course, whoever's doing it or the group, they're not big enough to come to me face to face, but they're out there. I don't know if it's happening on the other side. We're just putting our message out there. We're just stating the facts and letting it be. The other side of it is misleading. And on the floor, when it's all said and done, we've got to work together. Whatever happens here, we're going to be together. Hopefully, who knows with the merger if we don't have this with the cuts. But when it's all said and done, we got to get back to work. And I don't see, you've heard some crazy stories of people trying to organize, and that's not happening to my acknowledgement at this point. But there's some people who have some strong feelings, but that it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. If you had to identify the one or two most effective talking points from these consultants that are really persuasive in bringing somebody who was maybe kind of leaning towards the union and pushing them away. What would you say those talking points are, and how would you respond to it?
I think number one, I think is they're misleading of the dues, the amount of dues that you'll pay.
Yeah.
And probably two, I think they keep saying your relationship with your supervisor, your relationship with management. If the union comes in here, you're not going to have that. Like all of a sudden, it's going to be a wall up where we're over here and over there. We're never going to be able to speak, and that's not the case. On the case of the dues, how I respond is the truth is it's 30 hours of working pay, 30 hours a year, 2.5 hours a month. That's not even a 40-hour week. Now they have things going out there that it's 60 hours pay a year and it's just crazy amounts of money that's not true. And then they talk about, well, you could take that money and invest it. And if you invest it over X amount of years, you could just, a bunch of stuff that's not, what is what it is. And then on the other hand of the management, well, we've been there for 15 years and the management and whatever has kind of always been thinking above us or better than us. So what makes us think all of a sudden now you want to be our friend? Until when? If this campaign doesn't go through, I've seen it. We tried organizing our shop back in 2016, I believe, and everything was kind of like it is now. Oh, we're your friends and everything's going to be great. And we promise you this and we'll give you a little of that. And as soon as it went down, it didn't take but probably 4-5 months after that, and they're right back to the ways how treating us. They're up here, we're down there. The management select, the nepotism of the hiring, firing, discipline, went right back and steadily down. So I just tell the people that, like you mentioned earlier, nowadays with the climate, you got to have a contract. You have to have something in writing because, unfortunately, people's words or a handshake, it doesn't mean anything anymore. Right. Because they're not getting anything when I say from the union, the salary or the man supervision. But I would have a sneaky position if they don't get this. If this union fails this drive, they probably got a hefty bonus coming to them for defeating us. And they're not saying that because they don't pay. We get in. It doesn't hurt them. The people, the management. They're not the paying dues. They're not. Maybe they got a penalty coming on them. Maybe they got a threat from up above. You better not let this happen, or you're going to be out if they come in. But when it comes down to it, that's not affecting them one bit. All this is going to help the hourly workers secure themselves, have a good foundation, and be able to move forward in the future we're not asking for a lot. We're just asking to be respected, to give us, as inflation rises, we go with it and be fair. Just be fair. If someone's in the warehouse or shipping in a high-low driver and he wants the opportunity or she wants the opportunity to be in skilled trades, I'm an electrician, so an apprentice, if the protocol states and seniority and that's you're the one, you should be able to get in there and do it. But that's not how it is. You look around down there and certainly you see a lot of family members, a lot of friends getting in positions, jobs being made up, things aren't being posted, and there you go. And that's not right.
The union dues as an anti-union talking point has always it's always difficult for me to understand why that is so persuasive, because for one, if on Tuesday is when I believe the election is, y'all vote to unionize, you don't even start paying dues until you get a contract, right? So it's not like, Tuesday you vote for the union and then Wednesday you start paying dues. There's a period there that you're not paying dues. You're negotiating the contract. And then as you negotiate the contract, y'all are the ones that are going to get to vote on whether or not to ratify the contract. And so presumably, I have faith in you and your coworkers that you would be able to secure a contract that at the very least, at the very minimum, it gives you enough of a raise to offset the dues, right? And so you're on a monetary level, there's just virtually no world in which you come out less on the other end of a union contract. But then, and even in literally the worst case scenario, you're only able to get a raise that exactly matches your union dues, then you get all of the other good things about a union contract, like what we were just talking about, like the stability, the enforceability, the consistency, the job security, all of those intangible things that aren't money on your paycheck, but that are huge in your day-to-day existence. You know, the union, it's just never really made sense to me, especially when, and I want to put this to you, you know, I mentioned that they're paying at least $3,700 a day. We do this segment in partnership with Labor Lab, which is an employer watchdog organization. They're particularly focused on the union busting issue. Based on the contract that your employer has with these union busters, and what typically happens during these campaigns, Labor Lab has estimated that this campaign so far has cost the company between $291,000 and $394,000 in total so far. That is between $1,100 and $1,500 per worker, right? That is much less than that is much more than you would pay in dues, and that $1,100 per worker could have gone into your pocket instead of paying some outsider to come in and tell you how to vote on Tuesday. I mean, if more of your fellow workers knew about how much money these people were making, and the fact that ultimately it's the value that y'all created that the company is using to pay these people, you know, I mean, do you think that that would influence their decision on Tuesday if more people knew about that?
I believe so, without a doubt. Like you said, that's money that could be going towards an Axalta employee, an hourly employee, you know, in the plant. That's a lot of money, and we see it. It's not just here; you see it throughout the plant. The upgrades they do to beautify the place, instead of investing in your workers or even investing in equipment in the plant. I mean, that's an old plant. We used to be Ford, and there's some things in there that have been there since it was Ford. You know, wow. There's money that could have been invested in a lot better ways to help that company roll, you know, whether it be in us or just in the infrastructure. But yeah, it's alarming to see the money they spend to keep people down or keep people where they want them, under their thumb, than it is to rise everyone up and make, you know, an even playing field.
Jared Greenia is a worker at Axalta Coating Systems in Michigan, a member of the UAW's volunteer organizing committee in the plant. They have an election coming up on Tuesday, April 14th. Jared, thank you so much for your time talking to us today. Is there anything else you'd want to leave us with before we let you go?
Just, you know, for everyone out there at the Axalta that's seeing this, it's your time. When it comes right down to it, it's like they said, it's what's best for your family. And if you want to keep what you have and move forward, then you know how to vote. Come Tuesday and Wednesday, you hit that box that says yes. It's not going to hurt you. It is only going to help you. And I thank you for letting me, you know, come on here and voice my concerns and my thoughts and have a great day.
Absolutely, Jared. Thank you so much for your time. Good luck.
Take care. Thank you.
We're going to take a break, folks. We will be right back. The Laborers International Union of North America, LIUNA Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama local workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact April at our training center to start the process at 256-904-1753. No experience is needed. We offer free training, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is our mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by the Communication Workers of America. Learn more at cwa-union.org.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by the United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America, better known as the UAW. UAW. They are one of the largest and most diverse unions in North America, with members in virtually every sector of the economy. UAW-represented workplaces range from multinational corporations, small manufacturers, and state and local governments, to colleges and universities, hospitals, and private nonprofit organizations. The UAW has more than 400,000 active members and more than 580,000 retired members in the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. You can learn more about the UAW and join at uaw.org. The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by Labor Notes. Labor Notes is a media and organizing project that has been the voice of union activists who want to put the movement back in the labor movement since 1979. You can learn more about Labor Notes at labornotes.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
Union leaders, do you want a powerful website and mobile app built just for your members? The Union Active system, created by Unions America, makes it easy to share news and documents, send alerts, and keep your members engaged anytime, anywhere. Trusted by thousands of unions, Union Active streamlines communication so you can focus on what matters most, your members. With real-time updates, secure messaging, and custom features built for unions, you'll keep your members informed and engaged 24/7. Get Union Active today. Visit unionactive.com to learn more. Union Active, the ultimate website and communication system for unions.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth. All wealth should go to labor. You are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. He's out today. He's doing a panel at some sort of history symposium down in South Alabama about the 1971 Huntsville, Alabama sanitation workers strike. So cool. Super cool. Really excited to talk to him about it next week. If you're just tuning in, go ahead and like the stream if you're finding us online. Like the stream, subscribe to the channel, give us 5 stars if you're listening to us as a podcast. We're coming up on the end of the first half, but find us online at the Valley Labor Report on YouTube or Facebook to continue watching. We've got a great second half of the program lined up. We are going to be talking to Oliver Larkin, a candidate for the for Florida's 23rd Congressional District, union organizer, Democratic Socialist, running against Jared Moskowitz. Really excited for that conversation. Before we get to that, though, we got about another 18 minutes here, so let's talk about this bill in Tennessee that I found interesting. There's a bill in Tennessee that would break up pharmacy benefit managers and pharmacies. And CVS is right now blanketing the airwaves in Tennessee, trying to fight it, saying that if this bill passes, if the bill passes, proponents argue, and I would be inclined to agree, that this would bring down costs of pharmaceuticals for customers and increase competition, empower independent pharmacies. And the reason for that is that, when these pharmacy benefit managers who negotiate with pharmaceutical companies are able to be the same company as the pharmacies themselves, the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance found that CVS reimbursed its stores up to 16,500% more for certain drugs than non-affiliated locations. Okay, so that is a price that has been passed on to the consumer and has an anti-competitive effect. So it's just not good having these companies be the same. They should be broken up. But obviously the pharmacies, they don't like that, or the big pharmacies and the pharmacy benefit managers, they don't like that. They want to be able to make more money. So they're fighting this really heavily. And they're saying that if this passes, CVS will close all 134 Tennessee pharmacies and eliminate 2,000 jobs. Now, here's the reality. That is, one, almost certainly not going to happen. Almost certainly not going to happen. There's no way that CVS, because what is going to happen is that CVS might be able to make a little bit less money, but it's not going to make their stores unprofitable. There's just no shot that's going to happen. And there's a big difference between making less money and losing money, right? So I put the percentage chance that CVS is going to close all 134 Tennessee pharmacies at very, very, very low, okay? Very small. If they did that, some other big company would probably buy those locations and run it, like a Walgreens or something like that. Or perhaps independent pharmacies could expand, and there would be more competition, which would be good for consumers. That's probably what's most likely to happen. But I'm going to throw an idea out for you, and if you're a Tennessee state legislator, you're an aide for a Tennessee state legislator, or you know one, and you're listening, let me know what you think about this. 844-899-TVLR. That's 844-899-8857. You can call in live or leave us a voicemail during the week. I would love to get your thoughts on this. Here's what I think you should do. If CVS leaves, the government of Tennessee should buy all of the warehouses that it leaves behind and run it for the public good. We have these sorts of enterprises, across the country. You look at the commissaries on arsenals and military installations across the country, running the federal government, running grocery stores, and you can get stuff for cheaper there than you can at Walmart. And it runs fine. Everybody likes it. It's a good benefit for military service members. You also have state liquor stores, which are fine. I go to the state liquor store here in Alabama. It's fine. And you also, in Tennessee, have the Tennessee Valley Authority, which is run by the government for the people, which has some of the lowest electricity rates in the country, despite the fact that a supermajority of its workers and a supermajority of the workers of its contractors are unionized, make good union wages, have good benefits, have security, have retirement, pensions, and it's run by the government, the TVA. And so why not have a pharmacy TVA in Tennessee? You have a public option for pharmaceuticals that can be run without having to pay a shareholder tax, right? Because that's all profits are, is just a tax that we have to pay to the rich people who own these enterprises. The government should buy it. The government should take over these pharmacies that CVS says they're going to leave behind. Probably not going to do it, but if they do, Tennessee should take over these pharmacies, run them for the public good, charge lower rates for people, offer good paying state jobs with pensions, and do it all more cheaply than the private sector and deliver for working people of Tennessee. That's what I think they should do. I think that they should take the opportunity that would be given to them by the corporate malfeasance of this huge multi-billion-dollar corporation and turn it into an opportunity to deliver for Tennesseans. I think that's what would make sense. But let me know what you think. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number. 844-899-8857. Mark in the chat says, you think pharmacies make money? Go look up what happened to Walgreens. Their stock went from $100 to $10 and were taken over by a private firm. I think you mean private equity. Walgreens was always a private firm. Walgreens was always private. It was never run by the government. The definition of socialism is having the government controlling the means of production, and you guys think that's a good idea. You can call it whatever you want, but the fact of the matter is that it works in utilities, right? I mean, we look at the TVA, and look at not just the TVA, but look at public power utilities across the country, right? Because the TVA is not the only public power utility in the country. There are lots of places in the country where communities have decided to run their utility systems municipally, right? And if you look at public power utilities across the country, they generally, not just the TVA, but they generally have lower utility rates. They generally have a higher reliability, and their employees are generally paid better. So, you know, I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but I'm just looking at results, right? I used to work at Walgreens, says another person in the chat. Yes, they were bought out by private equity. They only had 2 pharmacists for a 7-day, 12-hour operation. Yeah, and so that actually, you know, the Walgreens being bought by private equity and then performing worse is kind of, that lends itself to my argument, right? That the private sector is not responsible enough to run these companies, and we should have a public option. And look, if it doesn't work well, then say la vie, and we can, we still have Walgreens that we can go to in Tennessee. So there you go. Give me your thoughts about it. 844-899-TVLR. 844-899-8857. Let's get to Boss Watch. Every day across the South, workers are killed on the job, stolen from, discriminated against, or sexually harassed. Sometimes the employers are caught. These are last week's stories. This is Boss Watch. Boss Watch. Over in North and South Carolina, the U.S. Department of Labor has recovered $95,000 in back wages for 33 cooks at 3 IHOP franchise locations that failed to pay overtime, as federal law requires, at locations in both North and South Carolina. The department's Wage and Hour Division found a restaurant franchise based in West End, North Carolina, violated overtime provisions of the Fair Labor Standards Act at all 3 of its locations after it paid cooks straight time for all hours worked instead of the federally mandated time and a half, their regular rate for hours worked in excess of 40 in a work week. The employer, which operated all 3 restaurants as IHOP restaurants, also maintained payroll records that falsely listed those wage payments as bonuses. Wage violations like these are all too common in the restaurant industry, says Wage and Hour Division Acting District Director Michael Gannett in Columbia, South Carolina. Employers are encouraged to review their pay practices to ensure they pay workers in accordance with the law. In Georgia, a U.S. Department of Labor follow-up investigation of 2 Cartersville stone product manufacturers found that the employers failed to address safety violations related to silica exposure the department had identified in previous investigations. After a follow-up inspection, the department's Occupational Safety and Health Administration cited Stone Atlanta Countertops, which owns the facility, for 2 repeat, 7 serious, and 3 other than serious violations related to exposures to noise and respirable crystalline silica, including failure to develop a written respiratory protection program, a written exposure control plan for silica, and a written hazard communication certification program for hazardous materials. OSHA also cited GT Stone Granite LLC with 8 repeat, 4 serious, and 2 other than serious violations for employees overexposed to noise and respirable crystalline silica. In addition, OSHA found the employer failed to implement a written exposure control plan and a hazard communication plan. OSHA proposed $42,000 in penalties for Stone Atlanta countertops and $73,000 in penalties for GT Stone Granite LLC. Over in Texas, Houston Division, the operator of Kroger grocery store number 300 in Houston's Clear Lake area, violated federal employment law when it failed to accommodate and then fired an employee because of her disability, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission charged in a lawsuit. In its lawsuit, the EEOC charged that a self-service checkout attendant suffering from neuropathy, who for 3 preceding years worked successfully using a walker, was stripped of that reasonable accommodation by new management. The employee's neuropathy limited her ability to walk and move, and her feet went numb if she was required to stand for too long, but using a walker helped her to mitigate some of her physical disabilities. It's amazing that management would say, you know, you need a walker, but we're not going to allow you to have a walker. Crazy. Kroger's new management failed to interact with the employee to determine if the previously granted accommodation was reasonable or if another was potentially available. Instead, management told her to seek leave, which she did not need nor want, until she could return to work without an accommodation. The employee was terminated by Kroger when she could not support a need for leave with medical documentation, according to the suit. Such alleged conduct violates the Americans with Disabilities Act, which prohibits employers from discriminating against employees because of their disabilities, including denying such individuals a reasonable accommodation absent undue hardship and firing them because they need an accommodation. The EEOC filed suit in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Texas, Houston Division, after first attempting to reach a pre-litigation settlement through its conciliation process. In the lawsuit, the EEOC seeks back pay and instatement or front pay for the aggrieved employee, plus compensatory and punitive damages in amounts to be determined at trial. In addition, the EEOC is seeking a permanent injunction enjoining Kroger from engaging in disability discrimination in the future, and an order requiring Kroger to institute and carry out policies, practices, and programs which govern requesting, processing, and granting reasonable accommodations for disabilities, and which eradicate the effects of Kroger's alleged discriminatory employment practices. If we missed something, let us know at tvlr.fm/contact, but that is Boss Watch for this week. We're going to be coming up on the second half of the program. Like I said, we got a really great second half of the show lined up for you. We are going to be talking to Oliver Larkin, a union organizer and candidate for Florida's 23rd Congressional District. He's challenging Jared Moskowitz, probably the most pro-war Democrat in Congress, saying, I can't remember who it was that he said he is, quote, to the right of on war, but it was some crazy right-wing guy. I mean, just bonkers, saying that, the Republicans are not pro-war enough as a Democrat in the year of our Lord 2026, when it's incomprehensible. But that's a big part of the reason that this guy is running against Jared Moskowitz. So we'll see how he does. Looking forward to the conversation. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number if you would like to call in. 844-899-8857. You can also send us a text message at the same number, and we will be able to read those messages. And if you catch us when we are not live, then you can leave us a voicemail, again, at the same number. Just a reminder before we wrap up, though, you can go to labornotes.org/events for some free and low-cost trainings. We're proud to remind folks that we are part of Means TV, a worker-owned streaming cooperative. You can subscribe to Means TV with our discount code, TVLR, and receive 20% off either your first month or the entire year. There are lots of great programs on the site, including a documentary covering the unionization of a poultry plant in the South and the Amazon labor union campaign. Also, if you're not on our email list, you're missing out on the exhaustive weekly roundups of the goings-on of labor in the South and Southern employers being held accountable for injuring, killing, discriminating against, or stealing from their workers. You can subscribe to those newsletters at tvlr.fm. We've got great hats, stickers, and t-shirts at tvlr.fm/store, and you can donate to the program at tvlr.fm/donate. Heading into overtime now, so hope you find us on Facebook and YouTube to continue listening to the program. But if you don't do that, we appreciate you spending your time with us, and we'll see you next week. All right, we're off the radio now. Appreciate everybody for hanging out. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell. Which side are you on? Which
This is Overtime, a production of the Valley Labor Report, the largest union talk radio and online news outfit in the South, now broadcasting in Minneapolis and Chicago, too, coming to you from the heart of the Tennessee Valley in the Spice Radio studios in Huntsville, Alabama. We are run by working people and for working people. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. We appreciate you spending some time with us. If you'd like to give us a call or leave us a voicemail, the phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. We got a we did get a voicemail last week. Wanted to play it. Appreciate you leaving it. Let's go ahead and play clip one.
Hey, this is Casey from Lawrenceville, Georgia. I listen to you guys' podcast on my little podcatcher app, and just wanted to call, let you know I really appreciate what you guys do, getting this information out. Just the ability to know what's going on in labor in my region of the United States is incredibly helpful. I work for local government, and where I'm at, specifically, I don't have the ability to unionize. We have a lot of good benefits and stuff that I think deters that, but I think also there's some regulation in our work, and I don't know. It's just people have talked about it before, and there's basically not been a chance to get off the ground. But I'm fascinated by, the struggle that people are going through. I like to hear about what's going on here in Georgia and in Alabama and South Carolina and Tennessee, close by, and try to keep an ear to the ground to see ways that I can support, whether it's sending a couple dollars here and there or just letting people know about what's going on. I'll be honest, with our political climate right now, democracy in an electoral system seems kind of dead. And right now it seems like the only hope forward as a country, as, having some sort of real democracy is through labor. So I'm a big advocate for labor unions. I keep trying to explain to people that, if you want democracy, it starts in the workplace. That's our way forward. So just grateful for you guys as a resource. Just wanted to call in, let you know. Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate the voicemail, man. Always appreciate the kind words. And I will say, if you're looking for some inspiration specifically for organizing a local government job where, you don't have, quote unquote, the right to organize, we've done a few interviews with members of UE Local 150. And they represent state and municipal workers in North Carolina, where, similar to Georgia, there is no quote-unquote right for public sector workers to organize. But the UE, even though they don't have, contracts and they don't have dues check off, people still join and pay dues to the UE and participate in the UE because they have been able to, through their union, through direct action, through advocacy and lobbying and getting involved in elections, they have been able to institute, I think it's a $25 an hour minimum wage in Charlotte, North Carolina. They have also been able to they were actually able to get the Republican state treasurer of North Carolina to divest from Israel. They were also able to they've also gone on multiple illegal strikes without any being fired from their jobs, and were able to get what they were asking for in those strikes. They've done a lot of really, really cool stuff that I would recommend, so I'd recommend, going UE Local 150, search them, take a look at their website, see the cool things that they've done, and you can find some of our interviews with UE Local 150 there, because, a union is not just an organization that is recognized by the employer and the state. A union is when two or more workers decide that they're going to organize together to make their workplace better. Right? So you don't need recognition from the employer. You don't need recognition from the state. You don't need to have an election. You don't need to have a contract. You just have to decide that you're going to be a union. Obviously, easier said than done, but there are people who are doing it. CWA also has a similar program. They also have similar programs across the country for municipal workers, for municipal and state workers where there are not, where there's not, a direct right to collective bargaining. So check it out, and you might think it's you might end up finding it's worth reaching out to the UE. Local 150 or potentially the CWA to see about starting a union campaign with one of those unions, or even doing it by yourself. So yeah, check that out. There's a question in the chat. Which country or civilization in the history of the world since the beginning of time has socialism worked? This is just a super tired question, especially when there is not an interest in engaging with the examples that I put forward, right? I was talking earlier in the program about how this Tennessee state legislature is pushing forward a bill that would break apart pharmacy benefit managers from pharmacies to try to lower costs for patients and people who need pharmaceuticals. And CVS is threatening to leave the state entirely. So I said, well, look, if CVS leaves the state entirely, then the state should take those stores and run public pharmacies for the public good. And I pointed to examples that we have of the government doing things like that, like the TVA, like actually the Postal Service. These things, they do well. People like them. Like the commissaries for military families. People like them, and they run well. So if you say that socialism is when the government owns and runs the means of production, then I guess that's socialism, and I guess it works fine, at least in those instances. And so, you gotta kind of deal with the realities of the world as they exist. And the reality is that the government can and does run really efficient programs and education and agencies. So, Union Gus says the UE is doing some really cool stuff. They're working on organizing grocery store chain here in Portland as an alternative to the UFCW. That's interesting. Huh. Presumably because the UFCW is not organizing those grocery stores, or surely the UE is not raiding the UFCW. That would kind of surprise me. Have we got Oliver in the Zoom yet? As we wait for Oliver, I'll talk about there was an interesting summit that the AFL-CIO put on a couple of weeks ago, the Workers First AI Summit. And at this Workers First AI Summit, it was presented by the AFL-CIO and the Tech Institute of the AFL-CIO. They had, a bunch of workers on to talk about how AI and, robotic surveillance is really encroaching on their lives. Friend of the show, actually, Isaiah Thomas, an Amazon worker and now working for the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union in Alabama. He was actually there talking about how Amazon is implementing some of this stuff. And then they also talked about some paths forward. And so at this summit, they put out 8 priorities for workers in the age of AI. Those are 1, strengthening labor rights and broadening opportunities for collective bargaining. Advancing guardrails against harmful uses of AI in the workplace. That's number 2. Number 3, supporting and promoting copyright and intellectual property protections. Number 4, developing a worker-centered workforce development and training system. Number 5, institutionalizing worker voices within AI research and development. Number 6, requiring transparency and accountability in AI applications. Number 7, modeling best practices for AI use with government procurement. And number 8, protecting workers' civil rights and upholding democratic integrity. So I think that all of those are really important. They're all really important things that workers need and deserve and should fight for. But there was an opinion piece in Labor Notes that talked about some other strategies as well. And they described, this author, who was Vishal Reddy, described the AFL's organizing and bargaining principles as emphasizing defensive tools. And so, Reddy says that those are defensive and process-oriented, and they're necessary, but they're not sufficient. Right? And so if they're not sufficient, then how can the labor movement make sure that technological process is redefined on labor's terms and not the oligarchs? And one of those things that we can do is go on the offensive. And so he talks about, they talk about the 32-hour work week and fighting for a shorter work week. And that's, that has been something that actually the labor movement started fighting for not long after we secured the 5-day work week, because the idea, you look at Keynes' predictions. Keynes' predictions was that by now the average worker would only be working 15 hours a week because of all the technological and productivity advancements that we've made. But instead of that, our wages have stagnated as we have to work more and more hours and more jobs. And so one of the things that working people in the labor movement and working people outside of the labor movement can do upon joining the labor movement is fighting to take back our time from the companies who are trying to squeeze more and more out of us, right? And so the 4-day work week is one way to do that. And he talks about how the last real reduction in work hours was in 1940. And up until then, that was actually one of the labor movement's signature demands was less work, the 8-hour day, the 5-day week, 8 hours for work, 8 hours for play, 8 hours for rest. I mean, that was one of the signature proposals from the labor movement. And then once we got the 8-hour day and the 5-day week, our ambitions really tapered off, and we started focusing more and more on compensation rather than our time. And I think it's been really negative for the labor movement. I mean, I talk to so many workers in unions who are working 6 and 7 days a week. And that's just, and then they'll tell me, oh, well, we can't get people to stay despite how good the pay is. And the reason people don't want to stay even in a good paying union job, if it works 6 to 7 days, if you have to work 6 to 7 days a week, is because working 6 to 7 days a week is for the freaking birds. I'm not going to work 6 to 7 days a week unless I absolutely have to. I mean, God forbid I end up having to get a job where I have to work 6 to 7 days a week. But people should not have to do that. You should be able to work 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, and go home and have a freaking life. And, they don't want you to, right? And another thing that even the Labor Notes article doesn't mention, though, that I always harp on when I talk about automation and production, automation and productivity and things like that. One of the chief reason that automation and productivity gains have not redounded to the benefit of working people primarily and have instead primarily benefited people at the top is because the people at the top own everything. They have complete control over what their companies decide to do with the increased profits and the increased productivity that we get from technological progress. And so we really need to have conversations in this country about whether or not private ownership of these huge corporations who are making, paradigm altering, potentially technological progress in the form of AI, should what, Grok AI, should what Claude does, should what ChatGPT does, should those decisions be left up to one person or up to the one person at individual companies where they will be implementing AI? I don't think so. Because it's not just that one person who created these AIs. It's a whole bunch of people at these companies. And it's not even just the people at the companies who created the AI. It's the people who farmed the fields, who built the roads, who built the infrastructure, who educated them, who allowed them to be able to work on AI instead of having to focus on subsistence living, right? And so why should the people, this small group of people at the very top of one particular industry, have so much control over what happens in our country? They shouldn't, is the answer, and we need to have a conversation about that. But potentially, we'll be having part of that conversation with our next guest. Oliver Larkin is a Democratic candidate for Florida's 23rd congressional district, challenging Jared Moskowitz, the most, I think he wouldn't even object to this description, the most pro-war Democrat in Congress. Oliver, welcome to the Valley Labor Report. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Jacob. And he's certainly making a lot of money off of the war, so I don't know if he would object to that either.
Yeah. I mean, from the way that he talks in his interviews, I really do not know that he would object to that characterization, which is bonkers in the year of our Lord 2026. I think that people are pretty tired of war, and so it's kind of crazy that that's how you are differentiating yourself. But we'll talk about that momentarily. Before we actually, let's talk about that a little bit, because you're in Florida, you're running against this guy, but you're talking to us on our program, which is on the radio in the South and also in Minneapolis and in Chicago. And so some people might have a question about, why is this specific Florida congressional race relevant to me in Chattanooga or Chicago or Minneapolis? Why should people across the country care about this congressional race?
Yeah, if you're listening to the Valley Labor Report, one thing you should know about our campaign and about our opponent, Jared Moskowitz, is that he was the very first Democrat in all of Congress to join Elon Musk's Doge caucus. This is a private initiative by an unelected billionaire that has gone after collective bargaining agreements of federal workers. It has completely defenestrated entire agencies, including the Department of Education. Here in Florida, we've got the lowest average teacher salary in the country. So if you're a public sector worker, if you've been affected by Doge, if you've had your Social Security information breached, that goes down to the Democrats that gave this permission structure for Elon Musk and Donald Trump to carry out the Project 2025 agenda, and primary in that is Jared Moskowitz. So this is someone who says he has the support of labor, but takes money from management in the form of corporate PAC money. We need to get this guy out of here and get a real working class candidate, someone like myself who has organized a union in my workplace, who is still and who is always going to stand with labor and the working class against the billionaires. That's why everyone across the country should be paying attention to this race, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I've been listening to a couple of your interviews with some other folks over the last couple of days. And I was, I think that I knew it at the time, but I get, just so much has happened that I forgot about it. But, you have to imagine that people who initially tried to associate themselves with Doge to sort of demonstrate, centrist bona fides or, bipartisanship, you have to imagine they're regretting that now, right?
Yeah, and let's talk about what kind of bipartisanship Jared Moskowitz has pursued, because this is the House Freedom Caucus and Steve Bannon kind of bipartisanship. When the New York Times covered the first federal shutdown at the very start of Trump's administration, they profiled Jared Moskowitz because Jared Moskowitz was adopting the House Freedom Caucus's talking points of passing 12 individual spending bills to feed into this narrative, this lie about the waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government falling on the shoulders of federal workers. That's not where the waste, fraud, and abuse lies. It lies with the government contractors. In fact, Elon Musk himself, who receives billions of dollars in federal welfare for his companies that he then pockets and is able to become the richest person in the history of the world. So with Elon Musk and Jared Moskowitz pursuing Doge together, this is what had Steve Bannon literally playing Jared Moskowitz's floor speech. Steve Bannon, the convicted January 6th, esque Breitbart editor-in-chief, white nationalist, former Trump senior White House advisor, was playing Jared Moskowitz's clips approvingly on his radio show. Wow. Because Jared Moskowitz, one thing that he loves to do is play the devil's advocate as the one Democrat in the room who's going to adopt the conservative talking points and framing. And it's a very cynical dance that he plays because he even has said to Politico magazine, the House Freedom Caucus thinks I'm a liberal, and the Democrats think I'm a Freedom Caucus member, and that's exactly where I should be. He's the definition of a fence rider in a moment where you need to choose which side you're on. Are you on the side of the billionaire class, or are you on the side of the working class?
You know, has he done any sort of mea culpa on the Doge stuff, given how just totally disastrous that has been? I mean, has he had to walk it back a little bit, or is he just as out and proud about his association with Doge as he is with his association with the Iran war?
Well, what he said with Doge is that he said Doge is effectively dead. He still remains on the caucus, to my knowledge. So if it were ever to be revived, he's still formally a member of that caucus. But he said Doge is dead. It did not carry out the promises that it said it would carry out. And if you're falling for Elon Musk hook, line, and sinker, then you're not the kind of savvy representative that we need to see through the talking points that the billionaire class serves us and actually stand on the side of working people. So his argument with Doge has been very similar to his argument with Kristi Noem. When he was criticizing Kristi Noem in House hearings, it was because she was not building the border wall fast enough. She was not carrying out the Trump administration's priorities efficiently enough. So it's not that so much that these priorities are misguided, it's that they're not being executed properly, which is very similar if you listen to Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries about the prosecution of the Iran war, Trump's illegal war that he entered into without the consent of Congress. It's a very similar argument. Not that they disagree with the priorities or objectives, it's that it's not being carried out by competent people in the way that Democrats would. And that's frankly the two-party duopoly that we're challenging by primarying an incumbent Democrat who adopts these kind of talking points.
And so I think that we've, adequately set the stage for the national relevance of this race. And so we'll get back to that momentarily. But to kind of backpedal a little bit, can you talk to us about how you got into politics?
Yeah, so when Florida reelected Rick Scott in the fall of 2014, I was a senior in college, and I had taken on tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. After playing football, I got a job as a line cook on one of our campus restaurants in Tennessee, making the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. So as I was burdened by the student loan debt that I was going to have to begin paying off shortly after graduation, and as I was working 40, 50, 60 hours a week over a hot grill and seeing my paycheck at the end of the week barely ever able to cover my gas and my groceries, I started to pay attention more to this 2016 presidential campaign, and in particular Bernie Sanders and what he was saying about Medicare for all, college for all, a $15 minimum wage. It immediately connected for me. With more money in my pocket, with the cost of a college education not becoming a punishment or a lead weight around my neck. So it was immediate the way that his message connected with what it meant to have a working class experience in this country. And I quit my job as a line cook and I drove to New Hampshire and I started volunteering because with Bernie Sanders down 50, 60 points in the polls and me consuming every piece of media information I could and then half-assing job applications to places I didn't really want to work, it became clear to me that my future and my stake and my own personal responsibility over taking control of my life was going to be putting everything I could into this presidential campaign. So I started as a volunteer. I got on staff as a paid organizer and traveled the country with the Sanders campaign. After that was over, I went to the agency that the Sanders campaign used for their fundraising, and I actually helped organize that agency with the News Guild, Communication Workers of America. We were considered the first political consulting firm to actually unionize and hold these Democrats accountable when they talk about the American dream and supporting the working class. When they're abusing their own staff, it really shows the lie, and that's really the hollowness that Donald Trump was able to exploit in 2016 and again in 2024, when Democrats say one thing about the working class, but then they do another when they're in power, when they're treating their own staff. It really goes to show that we need a reckoning in the party. And so that was a reckoning that I approached for a long time from the position of a union organizer, not only with the News Guild, but signing the letter establishing the Campaign Workers Guild with many of my Sanders comrades. So we knew that when you're making, the bare minimum to get by, and you're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and you're asked to sacrifice for a cause that you believe in, to the detriment of your own well-being, we knew that when they're media consultants making millions of dollars, that this Democratic Party has been captured by a corporate consultant class and really taken itself away from the grassroots and its labor history that made it so successful for the greater part of the 20th century. So that's what we're trying to return to with our campaign and with our labor background.
It's really interesting how many sort of parallels there are, or that I identify in your politicization to mine. I don't know how you grew up politically. I grew up very conservative. But I mean, hearing Bernie speak in 2015, 2016, it was really like almost a light bulb moment. There were a lot of things that took a little bit for me to get there on, but the economic stuff was like immediately, because I was able to grow up such that I never had to worry about, am I going to, if I get hurt, can I go to the hospital? Like, do we have enough money to go to the hospital? Do we have enough money for me to have a car? Do we have enough money? I didn't have a nice car. I had a $3,000 car. But I had a car. I didn't have to worry about putting food on the table. I didn't have to worry about, do I have enough money to go to college? I mean, my parents were, my dad was a machinist. My mom was a computer programmer. And so I had a pretty decent life, and I was sort of sheltered and when I started working in a restaurant, was in 2015, and that's when I started trying to read about politics. It was going to be the first election that I was going to be able to vote in, and at the same time that Bernie was talking about the problems that so many people across the country face and how there are really easy solutions to them, I saw those problems really for the first time in my life in my workplace. I was working in a podunk burger joint, the only person that didn't have to pay rent, right? We were all making $2 an hour, and I was the only one who didn't have to pay. That was crazy to me. That was crazy to me that so many people were having to put food on the table on a server's wage at a small burger joint, and just how unfair so much of everything is, and how simple some of the solutions could be. I mean, were you kind of already left politically, or did Bernie Sanders and that sort of movement pull you?
So I grew up in a more establishment conservative household, certainly not the MAGA kind of household, but the Jeb Bush, Florida Republican type household. And I didn't want for anything growing up. My dad is an Army veteran and got out, was able to attend college through the Army ROTC program, and he made a good living growing up. And so it was really through working in a restaurant and thinking to myself, and really seeing the lie that is often told about the minimum wage, that it is a starter job, that it is for kids on their school break or people trying to gain experience in the labor force, and not a job that people need to have and go to every single day to be able to get by and make their living. And that was something that every summer growing up in high school and in college, I was working in the marinas in South Florida. So doing physical manual labor for the Florida minimum wage, and then working in a restaurant. And so seeing over and over again, like, man, this is money in my pocket so that when I go to school, I don't have to call home and ask for help filling up the tank. But like, man, if you're really trying to get by on a salary like that, or on a wage like this, how is that possible in this economy, in this day and age? And just feeling the start of that was enough for me to just question the entire morality of the system. And when I heard Bernie Sanders talking about Citizens United and the Koch brothers and these things that we would call corruption in any other country if it were not America, because of the American exceptionalist ideal that we're raised on, it really just kind of exposed for me that, wait, this is the guy they're calling radical. I knew that I was a Democrat when Barack Obama was running for president the first time, and he spoke about the climate and the economy and building a mass public transportation network that really resonated with me. But then I was cynical after seeing the way that his administration played out and the way that Republicans in Congress just completely threw sand in the gears of everything that he was trying to accomplish. And frankly, also that before there was a Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, there was a Joe Lieberman. There were conservative Democrats when Democrats had supermajorities under Obama that prevented a lot of the things that were promised from getting done. So I think, growing up in a conservative household, but always knowing that I was more liberal, more left-leaning, and then really being radicalized right as I was entering the labor market to adopt more of a democratic socialist framework. And that's a trajectory that I've been on for over a decade, that democratic socialism is really the cure to all of the ills that we see from capitalism right now. When we have a planet that is sick, we're experiencing a mass extinction that we need to completely reorient our energy economy around renewables and public ownership, frankly, because the free market is not going to solve this crisis at the scale that we need. It's the same principle with the healthcare system. The United States is the wealthiest nation on earth not to guarantee healthcare is a right. We pay twice as much per capita as any other country for our healthcare, and Big Pharma is the largest spender in congressional lobbying. Why don't we have a system not only of single-payer insurance, but a system like the NHS where we don't have for-profit hospitals, we don't have for-profit pharmaceutical companies that really are making their billions off of the backs of taxpayer-funded research that they can slap a patent on and then prohibit the public from accessing this medicine that we invested in to cure us. So I think the entire system really needs a shift in framework, and that's something that was apparent a decade ago after the failures of the two Obama administrations, and it's even more apparent now as we've undergone two elections where Donald Trump has beaten the Democratic Party. Despite the unpopularity of Donald Trump, still somehow the Democratic Party is just as, if not even more unpopular, because people see that it doesn't stand for the things it professes to stand for.
You just described yourself as your politics as a politics of democratic socialism, and your district is not a, plus 40 Democrat district. It's not what, the district that AOC is running in. And so I'm sure that you're getting a lot of questions about democratic socialism. Why are you a democratic socialist? How do you respond to people that that are curious and even leaning hostile? Because I'm sure you get a lot of those towards, that word. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I think the reception, quite frankly, has been a lot warmer than I would have suspected because people at this moment, they want a fighter. They want someone who's going to stand up to Trump and the Trump administration. And what we've seen time and time again, and I think Zoran Mamdani's race in New York City is a prime example of this, because we saw after Andrew Cuomo lost that Democratic primary, he courted the favor of Donald Trump and Donald Trump's MAGA donors. And that's the same way that Jared Moskowitz, Jared Moskowitz was under consideration to be in Trump's cabinet before this election. So this is someone who was appointed twice by Ron DeSantis, who, as we already discussed, joined the Doge Caucus, the only Florida Democrat to vote for Trump's mass detention and deportation policy under ICE with the Lake and Riley Act. So people are sick and tired of people like Jared Moskowitz who stand with Donald Trump and the Republican Party more so than they fear democratic socialism, when Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are the two most popular politicians in the United States of America, because people know where we stand, and it might be new language to describe our politics and not something that is typical of American politics, but they know that we don't take the corporate PAC money. They know that what we say actually has integrity and character and value because it's what we believe in. We're not having to hedge our bets based on what our corporate PAC or billionaire donors tell us is the right or admissible framework to discuss our politics. So there's a tremendous level of trust and authenticity that people find with our campaign, and more so, Jared Moskowitz just is not here. He doesn't have public town halls. His constituent service sucks. And so when we're out on the picket line, when we're at the No Kings protests, when we're at the rallies, when we're going door to door every single weekend like we are today, we're meeting people face to face and we're hearing their concerns about they're using language like authoritarian, fascist, Gestapo to describe the Trump administration and their tactics. And that just frankly doesn't come up when it comes to our policy of democratic socialism or our framework of democratic socialism. And people receive it a lot more positively because they see New York City and they're like, why can't we have that here? We have a lot of New York transplants. We have a lot of liberals from the Northeast, snowbirds that make South Florida their home. And so they see that what Zoran's doing, filling the potholes and talking about scaffolding and supporting labor contracts with city projects, they say, why don't we have that down here too? So I think it's a lot less scary for people, especially once they see our commitment to truly serving the public rather than the corporate and billionaire class.
You were talking to Oliver Larkin, a candidate for Florida's 23rd congressional district, Democratic candidate primarying Jared Moskowitz. You mentioned earlier in the conversation that you organized a union at a communications firm that you worked at, and unions seem to be a pretty big part of your politics. Can you talk to us about that and why the labor movement is so central to what you believe needs to happen to make America better?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the story of our economy after the Great Recession. And really, it predates that. It goes back to Richard Nixon and then even more so Ronald Reagan, their attacks on public sector workers. Back in 1968, Florida teachers, the Black Teachers Union and the White Teachers Union united, and they went on strike across the state, tens of thousands of workers for weeks on end. And right after that, the state of Florida banned public sector workers' right to strike, and that traces all the way back to now why Florida teachers have the lowest average starting teacher salary in the entire country. We don't have labor law in this country. We have anti-labor law, and that is something that if you've grown up in this economy trying to make a living in your prime working age years after the Great Recession and then after the COVID-19 pandemic, I mean, millennials and Gen Z have just been hit time and time again with some of the harshest economic conditions in this country. And now we're experiencing that once again with the cost of gasoline going up. And very soon there will be many more goods that become even more expensive because of this catastrophic war with Iran that is disrupting global shipping routes. Farmers can't get their fertilizer right now. It is spring planting season. We're going to see the price of food going up even more so than in the past. So when we talk about labor policy, this is an experience that every single working class person, every single person of working age should care about, because this economy, and I was listening a little bit before we joined for our interview about the disruption of AI and what that means, because for a long time, I think we conceived of AI as replacing blue-collar workers, manual laborers, factory workers, people who serve you food in the restaurant. Now we're seeing AI come after the so-called white-collar professional jobs of the creative industry, the Writers Guild going on strike in 2024 because Warner Brothers and the big corporate media firms want to replace the writers, the actors with artificial intelligence. And so this is coming after all of us if we don't put a stop to it. And the reason that we need more democratic control over our economy, what use are our political democratic rights if we don't have a say in the workplace or what the future of labor in America is going to look like? So labor is really central to our campaign. My campaign manager is a co-chair of our Broward DSA chapter, before that, chair of our labor working group. He was a Unite Here organizer. Our field director was also a Unite Here organizer. We've got people representing all sorts of different labor unions in our volunteer base, and in the broader coalition that we're building. So I think labor is just the the lever of power that we have, especially while Democrats are locked out of power in Washington, D.C. Republicans control the White House, the Supreme Court, the House, and the Senate. Labor and the right to strike and militant labor action is our lever of power to extract real material concessions in this economy while we still organize to win back the House majority in November and hopefully the Senate as well, and put a check on this Trump administration and start to advance some of the pro-labor legislation, not just the PRO Act, but going after Taft-Hartley and restoring public sector workers' right to strike, really giving people a voice in their workplace, not just at the ballot box. I think that is a core central theme of our campaign, and really to activate the working class across this country, because this is what unites us in a moment of partisan realignment and everyone suffering, regardless of who you voted for in 2024 under this economy. We have an opportunity to unite the working class, and it's going to take working class candidates that are espousing a message of unions for all and a job guarantee that is going to really get us through this current economic crisis and into an economy that truly addresses the wealth and income inequality that we're suffering from today.
Repealing Taft-Hartley is a big throwback, and that's something that I think illustrates your labor movement bona fides. You know, not very many people in the labor movement even know Taft-Hartley is bad. But you know, Cecil Roberts would be happy to hear that. He's the president of the United Mine Workers, and the last Alabama AFL-CIO convention that he spoke at, he talked about the need to repeal Taft-Hartley. So he's still banging on that drum, even if not very many other people are. And so I'm glad to hear you sort of echoing that. But you know, I mean, that the urgency of labor reform is of labor law reform is so important. But in the meantime, the urgency of working people to take their own initiatives and organize now in their workplaces, even in the absence of labor law reform, is so important. And that's, you know, I mean, that's a big reason why I've decided to kind of primarily do union work as opposed to political work, because, you know, like you said, I mean, there's so many touch points to people's lives through organizing a union that are difficult to get through most political activism. You know, I think that your campaign is a pretty unique opportunity for people across the country and in that district, but in most places, you know, the candidates are just not going to be super interesting, and in all likelihood, the candidate that you like is going to lose. And so, what are you going to gain by, you know, volunteering for their campaign? Whereas, if you build a union, then you're able to make connections that you can, you know, leverage for politics later down the road and build power to make a better world. But in the meantime, you're making people's lives better right now, right? Like every time you win a new contract and you get somebody raises, you know, I mean, that makes their life better in the moment. Every time you win a grievance, get somebody back pay, get somebody their job back. That is huge for that person in the moment, and you don't have to wait for an election for that. And so that's the thing that I, you know, find so inspiring about the labor movement, and it sounds like, you know, you have a similar perspective on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember when I was asked to be on the organizing committee to form a union in our workplace.
By your now wife, right?
I'm sorry?
By your now wife, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's
when I knew she was the one. When in the Taco Bamba in Falls Church, Virginia, when she asked me to be on the organizing committee. So that experience and what I would say our campaign, you know, does give you experience with is just having the one-on-ones and the face-to-face conversations, because it is a very similar experience when you're organizing your workplace to just ask your desk buddy, your neighbor in the office, out to coffee around the block, and then just ask them how they feel about the workplace, and maybe share what your own perspective is of just things you would like to see done differently or done better, and really opening that space up, and you'll be surprised about how common shared grievances are in the workplace. But every time that your boss tells you, don't tell your coworkers what you make, don't tell your coworkers what benefits you're offered, they try to isolate you and divide you, because when you're united, you can actually collectively bargain for your health care, for your hours, for your benefits, for all the things that really feed into whether or not the workplace is something you dread, or something where you know that you're being represented and have a voice in. And I think that's something that so many people just don't have currently in this economy, is respect on the job. When Amazon, one of the largest employers in the entire country, and I mentioned my campaign manager was a Unite Here organizer. He was also an Amazon warehouse worker. And so we carry this experience with us every day with how we strategize and plan to talk to the working class about our campaign, that we need to have a voice here. We cannot simply give up this ground to the goodwill or the better angels of our bosses, because so often they're going to look out for themselves and their bottom line and their profits or holders before they do their workers. So my experience of speaking to my coworkers and then getting those cards signed and having the happy hours around the corner after work and building that solidarity, it really made us feel a lot more cohesive, and really with a shared commitment to some common values that gave us a higher purpose than just towing the company line. I think that was one of the most galvanizing experiences of the entire ordeal. And I'm very proud to say that when we organized our workplace in 2018, that led into the DNC unionizing, the DCCC unionizing, so many other media firms in the Democratic space, where the workers who are getting laid off after every election actually organized and unionized and had a say. And that's why Bernie Sanders' campaign was organized in 2020, why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's campaign was organized in 2024. So we started a movement that has really, we're not there yet. Clearly, there's so much work left to do within the Democratic Party. But I think this labor orientation is something that needs to occur, and it needs to occur in this election. There's never been a clearer contrast with the Elon Musk's and Sam Altman's and Mark Zuckerberg's. They're increasingly spending money on campaigns. We saw that in Illinois, the $22 million dumped into those Illinois congressional races to attack progressives, to attack anti-Zionists, and to prop up the corporate class, the same corporate class that has been leading our country in this direction for the last 40 or 50 years.
Shifting gears a little bit as we round down the interview, we've talked about the Iran war and how Jared Moskowitz is, pro the Iran war, basically. What should he be doing, and what should Democrats in Congress be doing to oppose the war instead of whatever it is they're doing now?
Yeah, there needs to be a clear anti-war stance that is unequivocal. The Democratic Party needs to get AIPAC out of their elections. They just failed to adopt that resolution at the DNC meeting the other day. There needs to be an unequivocal stance against Israel's genocide in Gaza and apartheid in the West Bank. Its attacks on Lebanon, on Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio's attacks on Iran, and really on world sovereignty with the way that they abducted Nicolas Maduro. They have put a blockade on Cuba, are literally starving the island and causing hospitals and schools to shut down, people on ventilators to die. This is a cruel warmongering administration that is increasingly, with its brinkmanship of use of nuclear weapons and threats to annihilate civilizations, this is a criminal enterprise. And one thing that I would do in Congress is immediately introduce and support articles of impeachment, not only against Donald Trump, but against his cabinet and the Kristi Noem, the recent DHS secretary, for the crimes that they're perpetrating on people here in this country, immigrant and citizen alike, and on the people of Iran and of Lebanon and of Palestine. Jared Moskowitz, just to inform viewers exactly what he's done, when Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie immediately introduced their bipartisan war powers resolution to simply assert congressional authority under the Constitution to assert war powers over the president, Jared Moskowitz and Josh Gottheimer, another very far-right Democrat from New Jersey, immediately opposed this war powers resolution. And in fact, Jared Moskowitz called it the Ayatollah Protection Act. Then, after he was roundly criticized and our campaign called him out, he backtracked and he actually flipped his vote. But now he's entertaining supporting this $200 billion in discretionary war spending that the Trump administration is presenting to Congress when the United States already has a record trillion-dollar plus Pentagon budget. The military is already funded. It's these defense contractors and the waste, fraud, and abuse that goes into the military-industrial complex that we're really just seeing Democrats feed into more and more of. When Greg Meeks was about to introduce another war powers resolution, Jared Moskowitz literally skipped town. He came back to Florida. Democrats would not have enough votes in Washington, D.C., with Warren Davidson, Thomas Massie, and Nancy Mace, 3 Republicans who are also on board with that war powers resolution. So whether Jared Moskowitz is muddying it in the press or literally skipping town and skipping votes, or continuing to offer support to Trump for funding this war, a vote to fund the war is a vote to support the war. So Jared Moskowitz, as he's invested 4 times in Lockheed Martin, by the way, Lockheed Martin stock that hit an all-time high on the stock market the Monday after Trump's illegal strikes on Iran. So this is a war profiteer. I mean, it's disgusting, but it's not terribly surprising with the state of Congress today. And this is exactly the kind of Democrat that people across the country should be interested in removing, because this is also someone that is the least effective Democrat in the state of Florida by nonpartisan analysis of the Center for Effective Lawmaking. This is someone who doesn't show up to town halls locally. He doesn't show up for votes in D.C. Who is he serving? He's serving Lockheed Martin. He's serving his own stock portfolio. He's not serving the people of Florida's 23rd district.
How do you feel about the state of the campaign?
I'm really excited. I feel really optimistic, and I think for our volunteers who come in with their own beliefs and feelings about supporting Medicare for all or abolishing ICE, they hit the doors. And man, when you hear a triple prime voter who's voted in every Democratic primary saying the same things back to you, it's really galvanizing. And the movement we're building, people are so ready for it. And just since Moskowitz's opposition to the war powers resolution that I described, we've tripled our fundraising. We had more individual contributions in the month of March than in all previous months of the campaign combined. We're going on Twitch streams. I went on Hassan Piker's stream last month. I'm doing a lot more media, and people are really excited about the prospect of a Democrat that is anti-war, that is anti-APAC, that's standing up to assert that our message, this labor message, our democratic socialist framework, is not just something that should be confined to the deep blue districts of the country. This is a winning message in the South. This is a winning message in these purple and red districts that are majority working class, where people just have not had someone speaking to their material needs or interests for so long. So we also put out a poll last month that shows when people know about our campaign, we take a clear lead over Jared Moskowitz. He's below 50% in an initial head-to-head. So this is someone who's very vulnerable, and it's just a matter of getting the resources to help continue to fund our door-knocking campaign. We're going to knock on 80,000 doors in the district, one for every single voter that we expect to be turning out in this election. This is a grassroots campaign, and that's what I'm doing every day when I'm out on the picket line, when I'm canvassing, when I'm speaking to voters, having town halls. So I'm feeling really good about where we're at, and it's only onward and upward from here until August 18th in our primary. And then we're going to kick the Republicans' butt on November 3rd and show that our message is not just a winner in a Democratic primary, it's a winner for districts all across the United States of America.
You mentioned that you were on Hassan Piker's stream. I have to say, I don't think that you'll be getting as much of a bump from appearing on our program. But, that was about a month ago that you were on Piker's stream. That was before all of the controversy around Piker has kind of shot up in the, Democratic press. And so I'm assuming none of that has changed your mind, and you're not a big anti-Hassan guy now.
No, I'm standing by my boy, and okay. We actually had him on again. We put together a virtual anti-war live stream because of Moskowitz's opposition that I was just describing. I contacted labor candidates across the country, progressive Democrats, Justice Democrats, Democratic Socialists, and with Crystal Ball and Emma Vigland and even Ro Khanna joining the stream and Hassan joining the stream as well, we raised about $40,000 for candidates across the country right before the end of March. So looking forward to even more partnership with Hassan. When we went on, we raised $62,000 in about an hour and a half, and Wired put out an article the next day talking about how this is changing the dynamic of political fundraising. So I'd say we definitely helped seed the ground for this larger controversy with him going to Michigan to campaign with Dr. Abdul El Sayed and Summer Lee, by the way, who are two of the most strong voices in the Democratic Party as a matter of fact, when it comes to these issues of labor and supporting the working class. So sending all my best to Dr. El Sayed and Summer and the rest of these working class candidates across the country that are going on Hassan's platform and able to share this message that the corporate media just doesn't want average Americans to hear.
Oliver Larkin is a candidate for Florida's 23rd Congressional District. Oliver, where can people learn more about the campaign?
Yeah, www.oliver4congress.com. That's where you can find us on social media. You can donate. You can find our mobilize, volunteer, and town hall links immediately synced up on that website. If you're in Florida, you can sign a petition to help us get on the ballot. Our qualifying deadline for petitions is May 11th. So if you're a registered voter in Florida, you can go on our website and sign it and send it in. And any grassroots contributions are tremendously appreciated as well, and spreading the word online.
All right. Thanks for the time. Enjoy the chat.
Thank you, Jacob. Take care.
Yep. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number, 844-899-8857. Union Gus in the chat said that we should reach out to Kshama Sawant. She's not in the South, but she's running for Congress in Washington. And yeah, here it is. You should get former Seattle City Councilor and current Senate candidate. I didn't realize she was a Senate candidate. I thought she was running for Congress for Washington, Kshama Sawant. And, you know, I said this in the chat, but just so people can hear it, you know, I really appreciated her work on the Seattle City Council. She was able to get a big tax passed that taxed Amazon to pay for. I forget what it was. I forget what it was to pay for. Maybe Union Gus in the chat can remind me. But, you know, I appreciated her work on the city council, but I have been, you know, less than impressed with her career post city council, you know, particularly her decision to resign from the city council to start a podcast. I thought that was strange. And, you know, I mean, since then, really, she's more or less kind of fallen off my radar. I don't know much about what she, what she's done post her city council career. So it's not, you know, not been as impressive. And then I think it was either maybe right after she quit city council, or maybe it was even during it. She was attacking Sean Fain during the 2023 stand-up strike, which I thought was really bonkers, and has, you know, proven to be bonkers, I think, kind of post the contract. So Union Gus says, I've been reading a book about Sawant, and I'm a fan so far. Not super familiar with her post-council career. Yeah. Union Gus says it was to, that's right. It was, the tax was to pay for affordable housing in Seattle. So yeah, you know, good work on the city council. I think our political instincts are pretty different though, generally. me and Sawant. Again, 844-899-TVLR is the phone number, 844-899-8857. You can leave us a voicemail if you are not listening live, and you can send us a text. You can also send us a written comment at tvlr.fm/contact. Let's see, what else to do? We've got this clip from Dan Osborne that I thought was interesting. You know, we've been talking about how Tyson has closed a plant that processed 5% of all beef processed in the United States in Lincoln, Nebraska. Closed that plant, eliminating a huge source of beef production in the United States, killing thousands of jobs for Nebraskans. Horrible economic consequences. Dan Osborne has been beating the drum about this. The current senator, I think his name, Pete Ricketts, has seemed not concerned at all. Dan Osborne released a video talking about this last week. I wanted to share it with you.
Since I got into this race, I've been talking about one thing over and over and over and over again. 4 companies control 85% of the beef processed in this country. 4. And Nebraska ranchers used to get 70 cents on the beef dollar. Now they get 37 cents. That money didn't disappear. It went straight to the big packers at the top. Pete Ricketts has spent his entire
I just want to pause it for a second so that we can sit with that information. Now that the beef processing industry is so concentrated ranchers only get 37% of the money that you pay for beef, as opposed to previously they got 70%. And now that money is going to these executives and the profits of shareholders instead of going to ranchers, instead of going to people who make the beef, who process the beef. I mean, that is crazy how much that industry consolidation has had an impact on where our money goes. Let's continue.
Here in the pocket of Tyson and the other meatpacking giants. He's taken over $70,000 from Tyson alone. He's never called for breaking them up, never pushed for real enforcement of the Packers and Stockyards Act.
They are not violating the Stockyard Packyards, right?
Hasn't done a thing since Tyson shut down their Lexington plant and put 3,200 Nebraskans out of work. But now that Nebraskans are paying attention, Pete has made a big discovery. He cares about consolidation now. Pete tweeted this: "As governor, I helped Nebraska cattle producers stand up to consolidation in the meatpacking industry." Pete says his answer to consolidation is
Market-based solution for bringing beef prices down. Market-based solutions. Market-based solutions. Market-based solutions. Market-based solutions.
He also said,
again, this is one of the things where we have a private sector.
Pete's big test case for his market-based theory is a company called Sustainable Beef.
Sustainable Beef Processing Plant.
Sustainable Beef is a rancher co-op meatpacking plant that opened in North Platte in May of 2025. That's a great start. I hope it does well. It processes 1,500 cattle a day and employs about 900 people in North Platte. But here's the thing Pete forgot to mention. Sustainable Beef was funded in part by $20 million in taxpayer money from the Biden COVID bill, the American Rescue Plan. So is this a true
market-based solution?
Is this exclusively?
It's worth pausing there for a second too, and letting that sink in. That this this company that Pete Ricketts is touting probably only made possible because of Biden era investments, and it's just another reason to kind of foot stomp on the fact that the free market is a myth. It's not a real thing. The government always picks winners and losers. The thing to do is to be aware of that and decide how we as a society want to pick winners and losers. Do we want to incentivize consolidation and monopolization and anti-competitive practices and skyrocketing executive pay, lowering worker wages, increasing consumer prices? Is that what we want to incentivize? Or do we want to incentivize competition, lower prices, higher wages, lower executive pay? What kind of society do we want to have? That's a political question. It's not something that just gets decided in some objective way by the free market, because the free market is not a real thing. Let's continue.
Success story? Now here's where it gets really good. Pete likes to take credit for securing this government money, but then during election season, he slams the very bill it came from. Here's Pete. This year, we also have the rare task of spending the $1.04 billion that Nebraska has been allocated through the American Rescue Plan Act. These ARPA funds can help our state grow into the future. Oh, great. So you like this bill. But then, on December 6, 2023, Pete tweeted this: "Reckless spending from Joe Biden and the congressional Democrats, particularly the American Rescue Plan passed in March of 2021, caused prices to skyrocket." So, Pete, which is it? Is the American Rescue Plan a great investment in Nebraska's future? Or is it reckless spending that caused inflation? Because you can't have it both ways, man. You can't attack this bill for years, then brag about the money it sent to your friends. And there's one more thing Pete didn't mention about his big market-based solution. Walmart holds a stake in Sustainable Beef and is its primary buyer. Industry experts say that Walmart's entry into this market won't challenge its consolidation, it will deepen it. Here's Bill Bullard, CEO of RCAF USA, a cattle producer-only trade association. What Walmart is doing will lessen competition in the beef industry. It'll mean less competition. It'll mean fewer producers. And it'll mean a more concentrated and centralized food production system that is contrary to the national security of this country. So I ask you, the viewer, is taking $20 million in taxpayer money to build a plant that Walmart controls a true
market-based solution?
Look, I'm glad sustainable beef exists. I hope it succeeds. But one plant processing 1,500 cattle a day doesn't fix the underlying problem. We need to fundamentally break the stranglehold big meat packers have on Nebraska ranchers and consumers. Enforce the Packers and Stockyards Act. Enforce the antitrust laws already on the books. Give ranchers a real buyer again. If we want to address consolidation in meatpacking, we need to start voting out the politicians who are taking the money from the monopolists that are causing it.
All right, there you go. Interesting video from Dan Osborne. Hope you didn't mind me just playing it in full. But, I mean, so much interesting information there. And, Dan Osborne came within, I believe it was 6 points of beating Deb Fisher a few years ago when he ran. And so it's going to be interesting seeing how he does this year against Pete Ricketts. Pete Ricketts does not seem to be doing much to win favors with Nebraskans, with working Nebraskans in particular. Seems pretty content to allow them to, be kind of whipped around by his corporate benefactors. So we'll see what happens. We'll be tracking that race pretty closely. Dan Osborne, people will remember, is a union steam fitter, still goes to work today as he's campaigning. He was also a strike leader during the Kellogg strike in 2021. He was the president, I believe, of the BCTGM local that went on strike there. Has since got a job somewhere else as a union steam fitter. So really interesting candidacy, and we'll be tracking that closely. 844-899 TVLR again is the phone number. 844-899-8857. Appreciate everybody tuning in. I think that we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Adam's not here, so a little bit. We might have had another segment if Adam was here, but we'll be able to talk to him next week, and we might go a little bit long next week. Really excited to hear about the 1971 Huntsville, Alabama sanitation workers strike. So looking forward to that conversation with him. But yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, folks. TVLR.fm. Subscribe to our newsletters. Donate to the program. TVLR.fm/donate. Buy our merch. TVLR.fm/store. Really appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll see you next week.